Has this happened to you? Nigel Farage, I'm not a fan, he's a politician, highlighted the term debanking because it became mainstream news. But I believe this was going on more than we knew. And subsequently, after that came out, me and my wife, Co-op Bank, debanked us. And let me tell you why. Quite an interesting result at the end. Now, I have had a business and was paying some cash into that business, which is a completely legitimate thing to do. I asked my wife to go and deposit this money. The online account, which doesn't have any bank to go and deposit this money, you have to go in the post office. So she goes in the post office. I'd like to pay this into this account, please. Oh, you can't do that. You've got to have a QR code. So she naively said, oh, well, put it into my account. I'll transfer it later. Which they took the money, put it into her account. She came home and then from her Co-op account, tried to transfer it to my business account. Flagged. This has been flagged for fraud instantly. Now, what transpires is quite phenomenal. It's quite scary. So listen in. She rang the bank on the instruction from the app, and they said, well, where's the money from? What's you trying to do? She explains, well, it's got nothing to do with you. I'm just depositing some money in my bank. And why should I have to tell you? Which is a reasonable statement, in my opinion. You got nothing to hide. Why do you need to keep providing all these in-depth answers to the questions? Now, she stood her ground to the point where she went, it's my husband's business cash. I'm putting it in to my account because I couldn't put it in at the post office, and I'm transferring it to him. At which point she was closed down by the bank and said, you'll have to leave that with us. And that was the end of that. So now I'm a couple of grand out of pocket in cash, and she's now waiting for an answer as to what's actually going on. So I comes home from work, she explains the situation to me, and I'm like, well, we've got 2 grand of my cash and we have a joint account. She had a personal account and I had a personal account with them. So I rang them up and I says, you've got my money to be met with. We can't discuss this with you. I tried every angle I could, speak to a manager. Manager will tell you the same thing. We're not allowed to discuss this with you. It's been put under review, stonewalled. This continued for a number of days. My wife tried, met with the same thing. We then moved on to a week of getting no answers. And without boring you with how long this took, but I'm talking well over 6 weeks of them having my cash, which I needed in my bank. They've got my cash and can't give me a reason, and I've held it for some time. I rang the police. 101, I'd like to report a crime, please. Yes, sir, what is the crime? My money's been stolen. 2 grand in cash, it's been stolen. What do you mean? Who's stolen it? The Co-op bank. Well, how have they stolen it? I explained. I've put the money in the money's been put in the bank, and after this lengthy period, they can't give me a reason or an explanation, so they have my money. It's been stolen. It's my money, and they won't give it me back. I'm sure it's in the terms and conditions, Mr. Hammond. I'm like, since when does a copper or a police force know the terms and conditions of a bank? Let me ring it up and going, excuse me, police officer, can you explain the terms and conditions for Argos, please? What the fuck? I said, I know the terms and conditions, I've read them, and they're in breach of their terms and conditions because they're supposed to be transparent, and they're not being transparent. They're just withholding my money, which I need for my business. So I'd like to report the crime. We had her back into to the point where she put the phone down on me. They stood by, not telling us the reasons why. Now, my surname was my part of my business name as well. So this cash that went into the co-op was being transferred to the same surname of a business. It didn't take Poirot to work out from where it was coming to where it was going. They did a in-depth research into these accounts and these transactions, and the result was they said, we're closing the accounts down. To which we kept saying, that tell us why. They couldn't find fraud, they couldn't give us an answer, and they refused to give us an answer. Now that literally resulted in, you've got no account now. What also happened was, because they didn't tell us the process and what was happening, was direct debits started to fail for certain things. So then we started getting letters, harassment from different people, businesses, and we had to deal with all of that nonsense as well. So I believe this is happening across the board. What it's done is it's forced us into opening other accounts, which has then forced us into online accounts, which has then forced us into facial scanning, because you cannot open a bank account without scanning your face. Try it, tell me if I'm wrong. Any online app-based bank account, which is where they're all going, high street banks are closing, then you've got to scan your face, left, right, up, down, all that bollocks. And I know I'm talking on a phone and you can see my face. I don't give a shit. You can have my face. Doesn't change me and who I am and my sovereign approach to my freedom. So that was the end of that. No answers. Then they're throwing you to the ombudsman, and I've said in previous posts, as soon as it goes to ombudsman, who's funding the ombudsman? The banks are funding the ombudsman. So who's going to side with the bank? The ombudsman's going to side with the bank. So the ombudsman, again, a woefully shocking story. Nothing to see. Even though the bank didn't follow its own terms and conditions in this exact scenario. Those terms and conditions were a contract between us and them, and they woefully failed on that contract. Yet we can't get anywhere with it. We have had to put our energy into something else, because these banks are a superpower beyond your wildest imagination. Without reason, without recourse, they've shut us down. You may or may not have heard about the Canadian truckers' protest. They freezed all their bank accounts. Same thing happened in China, froze bank accounts. Imagine you're now in a digital currency world. I'll do another video on CBDCs for those that don't know about CBDCs, where various countries are, at what stages, and what's happened in countries that have rolled out CBDCs already. So on that note, thanks for watching. Sorry for boring you for so long, but wake up to what is actually happening on planet Earth. Peace.